Calaroga Shark Media.
Hey, I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. If you skipped the holiday weekend, I get it, but I'll tell you, there were real episodes Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. No holiday filler, plenty of fun news in there, some fun moments. Check that out. And today, at the halfway mark, I'll have a major announcement. But before that, just a really, really shocking development in the Make 1230 Great Again movement. If you're a regular listener, you know that the president and I are not aligned on all the issues, but one of the issues we are aligned on is the 1230 NBC franchise late night. We need to make it great again. The president, like me, not impressed by what Seth Meyers is handing in. The president on social media posted, "Why does NBC waste its time and money on a guy like this?" Which is a good question. We need to get back to the good old days of throwing things off a 5-story tower or masturbating bears or whatever Jimmy Fallon did while he hosted the thing. But friends, this is very tough for me. David Letterman has weighed in on the situation. Now you're probably like, John, yeah, Letterman. I mean, he's got to know, like, what is Seth doing? He should be throwing stuff off a tower. He should be having Chris Elliott on, doing fun bits. That's what I would hope David Letterman would say. But friends, no. David Letterman on the wrong side of the Make 1230 Great Again movement. Let's listen.
The president of the United States now wants to fire Seth Meyers.
Oh.
Yeah. And I thought, this is just delightful. How do you think that's going to go? So anyway, I've never been more proud of Seth Meyers. That's our old show, as a matter of fact.
Yes.
Yeah, we used to do that show.
We did.
And he does a magical job. But just remember, Seth, things happen.
I think Dave may have lost it. It could just be he got really old and he just forgot what 1230 is supposed to be like. Make 1230 great again. The president doing a great job on this issue. More masturbating bears, more throwing things off a tower, more Chris Elliott. David Letterman continues to cause me personal pain. He's on Netflix today as a new episode. He has a new episode of his talk show, My Next Guest Is, or whatever it's called. And today's guest, Adam Sandler. Now, hopefully, David Letterman is asking Adam Sandler questions about how Adam Sandler is a great dramatic actor and not in any way making Adam Sandler think that Adam Sandler's funny. Dave, I hope you did not let me down twice in one day. That would pain me terribly. But yes, out on Netflix today, David Letterman with the great, great dramatic actor, Adam Sandler. Things not going Johnny Mac's way lately. I told you yesterday, Jim Gaffigan's bourbon special doing really well on YouTube. I don't get it. You're only going to encourage him to do more? Everybody go watch Kevin Hart's special for something actually funny. Variety waxed Jim Gaffigan's car. They were curious. Jim, when did you find success? You were on Letterman and then quickly given a TV show called Welcome to New York, which was canceled after one season. What was it like to reach that peak and have it taken away? Jim Gaffigan said, I feel like my career is this balance between creative fulfillment and getting caught up in other people's expectations. And when you get caught up in other people's expectations, that's when you become frustrated. I know, like, I would expect somebody who you helped early in their career would call you back. And then when they don't, that's very frustrating. So I understand what you're saying, Jim Gaffigan. Jim said it's weird because comedians are very much self-servers, but they also have to be cooperative and compliant. They go into a club environment and they have to be deferential to the person who books it, the person who oversees it. So they have to be audacious to get there, but they also have to be deferential. They need some schmoozing skills. But in the entertainment industry, particularly when creating and executing a show, you have to be protective of your ideas. I'm not saying you have to be Roseanne, but you have to be protective. The skills that work in stand-up, not just the writing, but the business of stand-up, are completely different from the sitcom or TV world. Acting is something I love, but it's insane. I used to say auditioning is like stripping, but you don't get $1. There's an amount of humiliation and rejection every creative person has to embrace. Jim Gaffigan, are there boundaries you would not cross? Good question. Jim said, it sounds corny, but being a comedy nerd and having studied stand-up, I do think there's an aftertaste to stand-up that people don't realize. I don't want my stand-up to leave people with that icky feeling. I don't want to punch down. We all have friends who are super bitchy and gossipy, and they're great to hang out with, but an hour after that, you're like, I feel kind of bad. We were making fun of Melissa forever. I'm not saying I'm not guilty of this, but there is a lot of anger, and I have a very dark heart, but it's better to bring insight and make a joke as a commentary on all humans. Good follow-up here. In a recent special, Jim had a joke about Pat retiring from Wheel of Fortune, the punchline being along the lines of, you can't retire from playing hangman. Isn't that punching down? Jim said, no, honestly, that's a good example, because I wouldn't want Pat Sajak to be like, why is he picking on me? That's where it's imperfect. I tried to set up the joke where he seems like a loving guy, but the point of the joke was he was making $17 million a year for playing hangman. The meat of the joke is more commentary on how our priorities in society are all over the place. Pat Sajak was compensated because people had an affinity for him. He was efficient, he was likable, he was charming, but maybe a teacher should make more than him. Shane Gillis is going to play Lincoln Financial Field, home of the NFL Philadelphia Eagles. Over 60,000 seats. He sold it out in half an hour. That shows July 17th. The Daily Mail was very excited about this one. Canceled comedian Louis C.K. devours Hollywood legend's widow on streets of NYC as steamy romance is revealed. Okay, what's this? Well, you see, Louis C.K., just back from the Riyadh Comedy Festival, was spotted passionately kissing Philip Seymour Hoffman's longtime partner, Mimi O'Donnell. That's right, Mimi was seen with Louis C.K. 11 years after Philip Seymour Hoffman passed away. Now, the Daily Mail says that Mimi O'Donnell is now Spotify's head of scripted fiction. Mr. C.K. just wrote a book, didn't he? That's interesting. We're told in the PDA, Louis C.K. passionately put his hand on the back of her head. Josh Johnson got some attention for joking about New York City Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani. Johnson was joking about Mamdani's visit to the White House, where the mayor-elect and the president got along. Maybe they were talking about 1230. Josh started by defining a communist, saying that it refers to those individuals who want everyone to eat or want some kind of grocery store for themselves. And then he said, for his part, Zohran only really brought up Trump when he was asked. He wasn't one of those people that was campaigning on, opposing Trump specifically, you know what I mean? And it's wild that those two were in the same place. Johnson tagged that with, I would have been like, nah, sounds like a setup. I know a setup when I see one. DansPapers.com had some questions for Tig Notaro. Rapid fire Tig Notaro questions. Favorite book, The 5 a.m. Club by Robin Sharma. The last thing that took your breath away, Tig Notaro? 5 deer lying close together off a wooded trail. Interesting. Last thing that made you cry, getting tough news about a dear friend. What would be your last meal? My morning smoothie. Something worth fighting for? Planet Earth. If that goes, we go. Something worth giving up? Expectations. Spend an afternoon with anyone, alive or dead. Who would it be? She said, my mother. I'd love to introduce her to my family. Any interesting objects in your home or studio? Her answer, a beautiful crystal on our mantle from singer Edie Brickell. Last film you watched, Friendship. What's a movie everyone should watch? The documentary Come See Me in the Good Light on Apple TV Plus this fall.
Oh. 16 comedians. One island. And in the end, only one thing matters. Your vote. Alliances will form. Bits will evolve. Johnny Mac will beat recurring jokes to their breaking point. 16 comedians, one recurring bit, one survivor. This January on Daily Comedy News, outbit, outlaugh, outlast. This is Comedy Survivor.
That's right, Comedy Survivor will be the new bit. Here's how this is going to work. This week in the Facebook group, which is Daily Comedy News Podcast Group, you're going to find a cartoon image for Comedy Survivor. In that thread, I want you to make nominations for who should be part of this contest. Then we'll let the holidays go by. And then in January, every week in the Facebook group, Daily Comedy News Podcast Group, you will vote one person off the Comedy Island, and we will see who wins. Now, I want to remind you, it doesn't really matter. This whole thing is a bit. There's no actual island. There's no prize. This is a bit. So let's all tee each other up so that we can hopefully make for an entertaining podcast. And with that in mind, I have pre-selected 4 people who will be part of Comedy Survivor. You guys get to pick the other 12. But the 4 that I am putting on the island for reasons that you should understand if you listen to this podcast, they are Adam Sandler, Jay Leno, Joe Coy, and Jim Gaffigan, creator of Bourbon. It's Comedy Survivor coming to Daily Comedy News. Jump in the Facebook group now. Make your nominations. 16 comedians, 1 Comedy Survivor. Should be fun. Billboard released the biggest touring comedians of October 2025. Your top touring comedian, Nate Bargatze, $15 million in October. Wow. Some other people making some money. Louis C.K., if you think going to Riyadh will hurt your bottom line, well, no. He grossed $1.7 million. Louis C.K. did 11 shows domestically. 27,600 tickets, grossed $1.7 million. Matt Rife also sold 27,000 tickets. He did 2 shows, also grossed $1.7 million. John Mulaney, 7 shows, 23,900 tickets, $2.6 million. And Nate, of course, up top, 15.8 mil, 216,000 tickets, 14 shows. What's 15.8 million divided by 216,000? Siri tells me 73.14. So on average, $73 to go see Nate Bargatze. Must be nice. CNN on New Year's Day, they'll have a documentary called I'm Chevy Chase and You're Not. A trailer suggests a deep dive into both the myth and the man. featuring interviews with the likes of Dan Aykroyd, Lorne Michaels, Kevin Nealon, and Martin Short. Notice nobody from Community listed there. Out today on YouTube, Charlie Bes has his second special. It's called Neighborly. Charlie brings his particular brand of Midwest nice to his latest hour, full of stories about growing up one of 12 children, sneaking a beer in a church, gambling with his grandmother, and Midwest cheap hacks. And that is your comedy news for today. All right, I'll see you tomorrow.